Tonight on 24, a new phase of war in Iran following attacks on South Pars facilities. The Islamic Republic's threat to attack oil facilities in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. Iran's Intelligence Minister Esmail Khatib was killed. Israel warns no Iranian official has immunity.
Iran's strategic position has been significantly degraded.
The U.S. Director of National Intelligence told Congress that the Islamic Republic has been significantly weakened as a result of the attacks. The CIA director also said Iran was on track to build missiles to target Europe and America. On Charhorshanbe Suri night, we stood firm and united against threats and suppression. And Prince Reza Pahlavi's message for the continuation of protests coinciding with these traditional ceremonies in Iran. He has asked people to gather at the graves of killed protesters on the last Thursday of the year.
From the Iran International Studio, this is 24 with Fardad Farahzad.
This is breaking news. Hello and good evening to Iran International viewers and Iran and around the world. We're starting the program with some breaking news. Minutes ago, following a missile attack on Saudi Arabia, the country's Ministry of Defense spokesperson announced that 4 ballistic missiles fired towards Riyadh were intercepted and destroyed by air defense systems. At the same time, Saudi officials are reporting the activation of an early warning system in Riyadh and Al-Kharj. According to them, during this interception, missile fragments fell in some areas, but based on initial assessments, no damage or casualties have been reported. In a simultaneous development, a drone that was attempting to approach one of the gas facilities in eastern Saudi Arabia was also intercepted and neutralized. These developments naturally coincide with Tehran's warning in response to today's attacks on South Pars facilities. Iranian officials had said that some energy facilities in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar have become legitimate targets. The Islamic Republic has asked residents near these centers to evacuate the areas immediately. In contrast, Doha has called these new attacks dangerous and irresponsible. The attacks an hour ago on South Pars facilities have raised global oil prices and disrupted Iran's gas exports, while the transfer of Iranian gas to Iraq has also been halted. Amid escalating tensions in the Persian Gulf, Israel's foreign minister, after a conversation with his French counterpart, said that the Strait of Hormuz doesn't just concern the US and Israel, and the world needs to pay attention to this issue. NATO's Secretary General also says that the members of this alliance are collectively reviewing this issue to reopen this waterway. My colleague Samira Garai has joined us from the White House. Samira, with the attack on South Pars facilities, it seems the tensions have entered a new phase. The war has entered a new phase. And right at the beginning of the program, we had breaking news that it seems the Islamic Republic has tried to target Saudi Arabia's gas facilities.
The Islamic Republic has repeatedly said that it will carry out an eye for an eye. It says, if you attack my gas facilities, my energy infrastructure now, I will also attack you from that side. The United Arab Emirates, in an unprecedented move over the past 2 or 3 weeks, has condemned the attack on South Pars. It says, Israel and the United States shouldn't have done this, because if the Islamic Republic now wants to carry out similar attacks, the lives of civilians will be in danger. The lives of workers who are working in these industries in the region's countries, all of these will be at risk. The Islamic Republic has, just in the past few hours, launched attacks on Saudi Arabia. Initially, we heard about Riyadh. They sent 4 ballistic missiles towards Riyadh. They intercepted them, repelled them. The debris from the defense missiles fell on the city. And after that, an hour or 2 later, the Saudi Ministry of Defense also wrote on the X social network that a drone was heading towards Saudi Arabia's energy fields in the east of the country, meaning the Islamic Republic hasn't gone far. If it has attacked the east, it has currently started with facilities that are closer to it. He wants to arrange drone attacks there, not missile ones. He says, well, Saudi Arabia says we repelled them. No damage has been done yet, no explosion has occurred, but it's not clear if it will end here, or if, for example, the Islamic Republic will want to go after Qatar's energy facilities or not. Anyway, the Islamic Republic shares parts of that South Pars with Qatar.
جنوبی رو به هر حال بخش‌هایی رو جمهوری اسلامی سهیم هست با قطر
The United Arab Emirates came out and says such an attack shouldn't have happened. But fundamentally, the fact that such an attack has happened, you yourself were just mentioning it in the introduction. Like, what did Mr. Stoltenberg, NATO's Secretary General, say? We're seeing reactions. I mean, what happened? And we know it had America's green light, unlike the attacks that were carried out on fuel. In South Tehran, in Odessa, in Fardis, which, well, those attacks caused a big fire in Tehran at the time. And then they said America didn't like it, was displeased, and they criticized the Israelis, saying, why did you arrange this attack? Unlike that, this attack that just happened on natural gas had the United States green light, and it seems whatever strategy was behind it, it's now, anyway, specifically getting these reactions from NATO member countries. Yesterday, maybe one could have thought, considering what Mr. Trump said right here in the Oval Office, that the United States says, I don't need these anymore. I can now myself sort out the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. And I don't need this NATO alliance anymore. They've also proven themselves that when we need them, they leave us alone. Today, the story became a bit different. Ms. Lloyd was talking to reporters gathered here this morning, where she stated that while it is true the United States will also benefit from continued stability in the global oil market, the NATO members and European countries ultimately benefit much more. Because of this, they urgently need to step up their efforts. We are currently seeing that some diplomatic discussions regarding this are still ongoing. Specifically, Mr. Trump is also closely counting on the strategic energy policies of the Persian Gulf countries right now. This is also, again, a crucial point that Ms. Lloyd mentioned today and has consistently come up in other reports from American officials, that GCC member countries, or the Persian Gulf countries, are also willing, now specifically financially, to want to help more with the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Also, Farhad, there were a lot of reactions from the Persian Gulf countries. Today, the Wall Street Journal wrote a report, and our discussion isn't Saudi Arabia anymore, wanting to pressure America to continue the attack. Now, all these countries are telling America, either you emasculate the Islamic Republic, meaning you neutralize it, meaning you take away its military agency so that these attacks, these military conflicts, don't have to resume every few years, or it has to be destroyed. We used to only hear this from Saudi Arabia, but now even Qatar and the United Arab Emirates are putting such pressure on Mr. Trump, and when negotiations were still ongoing, Anwar Gargash, one of the foreign policy advisors in the United Arab Emirates, had said something similar. He had said, whatever you want to do with the Islamic Republic, if you want to negotiate, it has to be in a way that it ends forever, and we don't have to witness these comings and goings, and these negotiations, and these escalations of tensions every so often. Now we've reached a point, specifically with the attack on South Pars, it seems the consequences will increase, and attacks on infrastructure will escalate from both sides. Mr. Trump wants European countries, like Japan, South Korea, for them to step in and take action, and for the United States not to be the only one responsible for the Strait of Hormuz, and for a coalition to form, which will definitely make the Islamic Republic's response from that side even more severe. And overall, we will witness tensions and the worsening of the energy market. All of this, tensions will escalate.
Thank you, Samira Garrier. My colleague at the White House in Washington, D.C., Shayan Sami, a national security expert, has also joined us from Virginia. Mr. Sami, it seems that many red lines have been crossed by all parties. We've moved past them. We've entered a new regional paradigm that pretty much makes returning to the day before the war almost impossible. How much do you realistically think this recent attack on the South Pars facilities and the subsequent retaliatory reaction from the Islamic Republic, which we just saw moments ago as a direct attempt to attack major Saudi gas facilities, could completely transform the broader war situation going forward?
With my deepest respects to you, dear Mr. Farzad, and to the brave, resilient people of Iran, though actually the ongoing war has now definitely entered a critical phase of intense pressure on vital global energy arteries. I mean, the Islamic Republic clearly wants to raise the strategic effects of this geopolitical issue so much and be able to heavily influence international oil prices at least that much and cause those oil prices to rise significantly, which would in fact severely complicate the overarching economic situation for the United States and its Western allies. Well, doesn't this Israeli attack on South Pars today inadvertently help this very approach?
Why really should they target there? What strategic point is there for them?
چرا واقعا بعد اونجا رو هدف قرار بدن؟ چه نقطه استراتژیکی اونجا هست براشون؟
Look, it's because the best way to paralyze the regime's current economic situation and bring its economy to its knees is by targeting the ability to access these vital energy resources. I mean, if the Islamic Republic can continue its uninterrupted access to global energy resources, it can also be more influential on the critical issue of closing the Strait of Hormuz, and confidently say, if we're not going to be able to send anything, then no one else can either. But if we want to look at it politically, Tehran is actively pursuing three main goals. It essentially wants to impose strong deterrence by expanding the scope of geopolitical costs. It wants to compel regional countries to come and pressure the United States to contain the war, which right now, with these unwise attacks on Saudi Arabia, as you also mentioned in the reports, will have exactly the opposite effect, and that they want to influence international public opinion, like that resignation we saw yesterday in the United States, which even that isn't effective anymore. I even wouldn't find it unlikely that within the next 2 to 3 days, the NATO Secretary General, who is referred to as an influential person over Mr. Trump, as mentioned, there might soon be a strategic trip to Washington or Mar-a-Lago to act directly with Trump regarding NATO's vital cooperation to keep the Strait of Hormuz open for international trade. Consequently, we clearly see that the broader geopolitical process the Islamic Republic is currently using isn't working. Nevertheless, they are frantically trying everything right now to stabilize their position. First, they must reduce the devastating effects of the precise pinpoint strikes Israel is using to systematically eliminate their top leaders. Second, they urgently need to implement a solution to at least keep themselves above water.
As far as we're talking, you know better than I do that the Europeans haven't shown much interest in participating, neither in national capacity nor in NATO capacity. Mr. Trump has thanked the Persian Gulf countries for their support. We saw the Emiratis, especially with Anwar Gargasha's statements. It seems they're raising whispers about perhaps more active intervention in this war. How much do you think Israel's attack on the South Pars facilities was strategically intended to provoke Tehran into attacking Gulf Arab countries, forming a broader regional coalition?
Don't find it unlikely that this might have been a behind-the-scenes strategy. I believe Israel saw that NATO member countries are trying to get concessions from Mr. Trump for other issues elsewhere, conditioning their help in the Strait of Hormuz on those matters. Israel said we must shift the focus back to the current issue and also bring regional countries into this campaign because they are currently under attack. Anwar Gargasha's statement makes it clear that Persian Gulf Arab countries will continuously pressure Europe and NATO to align with the United States. These nations have unanimously concluded that the Islamic Republic regime must be eliminated. They believe that the regime remaining in power poses a severe and ongoing threat to the future of both the region and the entire world. With the Islamic Republic's strategic solutions and individuals eliminated, now is the best opportunity to finish things once and for all. Mr. Sami, Qatar's Interior Ministry announced firefighting forces are trying to extinguish a fire in Ras Laffan.
In northeastern Qatar, where we know Qatar's oil facilities are located, it's clear that the Islamic Republic, as it promised, is trying to attack oil and energy facilities in the region. This isn't just an example anymore. It's reality. How much this playing with fire can have effects that could get out of many people's control, even if Israel and the United States try to contain it, considering the rise in energy prices, considering the concerns that countries in the region have. Just a few hours ago, we saw the Sultanate of Oman express great concern regarding the recent attack on the South Pars gas facilities. The critical question is, how much might this massive fire grow in such a way that it gets completely out of control?
The probability is very high because, you see, we shouldn't forget that this is a high-risk and costly operation. In Bandar Abbas on March 17th at exactly 8:15, 4 very severe explosions occurred.
باید از بین بره. ادامه این روند با باقی ماندن حکومت
Simultaneously with escalating tensions between the Islamic Republic and the Persian Gulf countries, the Wall Street Journal says these countries have asked Washington to completely incapacitate the Islamic Republic government before the end of the current war with Iran, so that it won't be able to repeat these attacks on these countries. This report says that after the Islamic Republic's attacks on these countries' interests, America's allies in the region consider Tehran an existential threat. Ghassan Ashur, Middle East affairs analyst from Boston, and Atta Husseinian, economic journalist in the energy sector from Berlin, are with us. Thank you both. Mr. Ashur, I'll start with you. We have entered a new phase of war. An energy war is now shaping shape. How much do you think the action the Israelis took today in South Pars will probably, willingly or unwillingly, drag the Persian Gulf countries into this war?
This was a joint action between the US and Israel. In fact, it's clear the Israelis wouldn't have attacked here without US coordination. Now, why do I want to point this out? Because, in fact, the goals of these two countries, Israel and the US, in targeting South Pars are different. The Israelis' goal is to create maximum chaos in Iran and even in the entire region, meaning if we look at Israel's goal in this war with Iran, it's not just about Iran's missiles being destroyed or its nuclear program ending. Rather, chaos in Iran, the fall of the government, and even civil war would be very good for Israel, and dragging the rest of the regional countries in would also be excellent. That thing that happened, for example, in Syria and Iraq over the past 20-30 years, if it repeats in Iran, Israel will naturally be the main winner of this situation. And for this goal, from the very beginning, their intention has been to hit Iran's oil facilities, not only to force Iran to attack the region's oil facilities, but also to cause a lack of oil, gas, and gasoline within Iran. If electricity is cut off for the people of Iran, Iran will most likely enter into chaos similar to what happened in Syria and Iraq.
Well, won't this upset the Persian Gulf countries, making them say, all right, in the middle of this war where we ourselves have no direct role, and we don't even allow, at least verbally, our airspace and land to be used against the Islamic Republic. You are creating conditions that practically invite Iran to attack us.
هزینه بسیار بالایی داره و حتی ممکنه متاسفانه هزینه انسانی بالایی هم داشته باشه.
ممنونم از شما. شایان سمی، کارشناس امنیت ملی از ویرجینیا با ما. یک بار دیگه تکرار میکنم، در واکنش به حمله به تأسیسات پارس جنوبی همونطور که جمهوری اسلامی وعده داده بود، ظاهرا موجی از حملات رو به تأسیسات انرژی در منطقه شروع کرده. عربستان سعودی گفته پهپاد و موشک‌های بالستیک جمهوری اسلامی رو رهگیری و منهدم کرده، اما قطری‌ها دارن میگن در منطقه رس لفان که تأسیسات گاز in Qatar, there's a fire ongoing that they are trying to extinguish. In Iran, the national gas company says that after the attack on gas facilities in the south of the country, some refining units have been damaged, but no casualties have been reported, and all employees in Asaluya are in full health. A place that, due to having gas reserves and petrochemical infrastructures, is called Iran's energy capital. About 75% of Iran's gas consumption is produced in the South Pars gas field. Also, 40% of Iran's gasoline consumption is supplied using gas condensates produced in Asaluya. Similarly, about half of Iran's petrochemical products are produced in the refineries of this region. Today, besides the South Pars attack, reports of strikes on Bandar Abbas have emerged, and we can view these images together.
Bandar Abbas on March 17th at 8:15 a.m. 4 strong explosions.
Coinciding with escalating tensions between the Islamic Republic and Persian Gulf countries, the Wall Street Journal says these countries have asked Washington to completely incapacitate the Islamic Republic regime before the current war with Iran ends, so it won't be able to repeat these attacks on these countries. This report says that after the Islamic Republic's attacks on these countries' interests, America's allies in the region consider Tehran an existential threat. Ghassan Ashur, a Middle East affairs analyst from Boston, and Atta Hosseinian, an economic journalist specializing in energy from Berlin, are with us. Thank you both. Mr. Ashur, I'll start with you. We've entered a new phase of the war. An energy war is now taking shape. How much do you think the action the Israelis took today in South Pars will likely, intentionally or unintentionally, drag the Persian Gulf countries into this war?
This action was a joint one between the US and Israel. In fact, it's clear the Israelis wouldn't have struck here without US coordination. Now, why do I want to point this out? Because, in fact, the objectives of these two countries, Israel and the US, in targeting South Pars are different. The Israelis' goal is to create maximum chaos in Iran and even in the entire region. I mean, if we look at Israel's goal in this war with Iran, it's not just about eliminating Iran's missiles or ending its nuclear program. Rather, chaos in Iran, the fall of the regime, and even civil would be very good for Israel. Dragging the rest of the region's countries into it would also be excellent. If what happened, for example, in Syria and Iraq over the past 20-30 years were to repeat in Iran, not only to force Iran to attack the region's oil facilities, also, if there is no oil, gas, or gasoline, and electricity is cut off, Iran will most likely descend into chaos, similar to what happened in Syria and Iraq.
Well, wouldn't this upset the Persian Gulf countries, making them say, all right, in the middle of this war where we ourselves have no direct role, and we don't even allow, at least verbally, our airspace and land to be used against the Islamic Republic, you are creating conditions that practically invite Iran to attack us?
Yes, these allied countries certainly know that. Up until now, the Americans' primary goal has been to carefully protect Iran's and the broader region's oil facilities. Because America's strategic objective is quite different. America's main goal is to ensure that oil and global trade continue uninterrupted in this region. But now, given that Mr. Trump asked NATO to come and cooperate with them in this war, and they firmly rejected it, it strongly seems he's taking his revenge on the Europeans. By targeting Iran's oil facilities, he's essentially setting the entire region's oil facilities on fire, and this will cause the Europeans, who have already lost Russian oil, to face a very, very bad energy situation if they also lose oil from the Persian Gulf and Middle East region. Therefore, America's goal is to pressure Europe and NATO, while Israel's goal, in dragging the rest of the region's countries into war, has been to create chaos in Iran and the entire region. The Arab countries, especially those in the Persian Gulf, were not seeking war before this war started. In fact, after the 12th-day war, they were very satisfied with the existing situation. Iran had been weakened and had, in fact, turned from the primary threat for them into the secondary threat, with Israel being the primary threat. Therefore, they wanted a balance of power between Iran and Israel, which would ensure that neither side could actually eliminate the other, and these regional countries could, in a way, continue in peace. But now that this escalating war has officially started, and these neighboring countries have found themselves unfairly targeted, despite having absolutely no role or active participation in the conflict, the regional stakes are much higher. It is highly likely their crucial oil facilities and vital energy infrastructure will also be directly targeted in the crossfire. At this critical point, leadership in these nations has actually come to the stark conclusion that there is essentially no other choice but to, systematically destroy Iran's offensive attack systems, including Iran's ballistic missiles and advanced drones. The prevailing consensus is we need to weaken Iran completely so that it simply cannot attack us in the future. Actually, they are just choosing the bad option between two incredibly bad options, navigating carefully between the bad and the undeniably worse. Before these recent events, they genuinely did not want a war to happen, but now they have been pulled into the conflict without having any direct role in starting it. In reality, the geopolitical maneuvering of Israel, America, and Iran ultimately dragged them into this war. Therefore, the aggressive rhetoric we are currently hearing in American newspapers, telling the public, let's finish Iran's business, is rooted in this specific logic. Now that you created such a disastrous situation for us, let's at least ensure that Iran isn't a threat to our security for the next few years.
Mr. Hosseinian, Mr. Ashur, explicitly mentioned earlier that this recent attack probably happened in close coordination with the Americans. Furthermore, several other reliable sources are actively confirming and emphasizing the exact same thing. We must view this by considering the intense political pressures right now inside America against Donald Trump regarding skyrocketing domestic energy costs. And of course, this economic crisis isn't isolated just to America. We are currently seeing gasoline supplies being strictly rationed in several countries across Southeast Asia. The global energy markets are reacting sharply. Brent crude has now passed $107 per barrel, and Texas sweet crude has surged past $97. How much do you think this risky calculation was a dangerous gamble, especially for the United States, given this highly sensitive regional situation? A destructive war that the Islamic Republic itself actively dragged neighboring countries into will now practically become like a devastating tanker war, where vital global energy resources will ultimately be targeted.
Good evening. My view on the matter is contrary to your guests, because if Israel wanted to cause chaos, it had very good, juicy targets from day one. The Persian Gulf Gem Petrochemical Refinery supplies 50. Let's put that aside. But I feel like when a country holds one of the international waterways hostage for 15, 16, 20 days, and it's given messages repeatedly, officially, unofficially, behind closed doors, to open this international waterway, and partners come and say, hey, open this international waterway. When you don't open it, the result is that you get an ultimatum once, and oil reserves and oil depots in Tehran are hit. The second time is occurring today, which I genuinely believe also coincided directly with your recent report regarding the strategic bombing of Hormuzgan. I strongly feel that this was Donald Trump's absolute final ultimatum. Open this critical shipping street, Islamic Republic. If you do not open it voluntarily, we will forcefully open this essential international waterway with a heavy club. Now, whether the NATO alliance will ultimately step in or NATO will choose not to come, European countries are quite used to having their cake and eating it too, preferring to cross the sea without ever getting their feet wet. It is the exact same familiar story as 2003, when Germany and some European countries refused to participate in the war with Iraq and Saddam Hussein, and they clearly saw the resulting consequences. That happened now too, but I feel like what happened now, the attack on Asaluye today, was a completely planned, coordinated, and very limited attack. The place that was attacked today could have caused hell, both in human casualties, because the Islamic Republic isn't like Israel, which tells people missiles are coming, drones are coming, go to the shelter 10 minutes or 5 minutes beforehand. No, missiles just come, and it could have caused hell. We could have been mourning a large number of Iran's children today in a fire, which, I mean, I myself have traveled there many times. You don't know what kind of facilities are there, what volume of gas, oil, LPG, and gas condensates are stored there. If they wanted to hit here, it was just unimaginable for me. What could have happened? God forbid. I think Trump and Tel Aviv's only goal was to send the final message to the Islamic Republic that the international waterway of the Strait of Hormuz must be opened. Either you open it or we'll open this waterway with a club.
But Mr. Ashur, we must fully acknowledge that the Islamic Republic is certainly not a normal, legitimate, or conventional state actor on the global stage. Even right now, the devastating consequences of this ongoing war have already spread to 11, 12, or perhaps even more countries scattered entirely across the worldwide landscape. If the warnings Mr. Husseinian referred to don't lead to a change in behavior by the Islamic Republic, especially in the Strait of Hormuz region, how far-reaching could the consequences be? It seems this regime will probably fall eventually, but these energy resources and infrastructure are incredibly vital for Iranians. Their destruction could take months, years, or decades to repair. What damages and lasting costs could this ultimately bring upon the Iranian people?
Yes, naturally, the Israelis wanted to hit these vital infrastructures right from the very beginning. They fully intended to bring about the exact devastating economic disaster you were talking about, but the Americans actively prevented it from happening. Mr. Trump directly stated on several different occasions that we are the ones stopping the Israelis from hitting Iran's oil. This simply highlights Washington's immense influence. Even now, the recent and rather limited military strike on this specific area was heavily coordinated and carefully pre-planned alongside the United States government. Ultimately, if the Americans actually decide to step back and give the official green light to the Israelis, the entirety of the rest of Iran's crucial oil resources will undoubtedly also be severely hit. The thing is, it's definitely not that the Israelis don't want to create widespread regional chaos. Rather, the reality is that the Americans simply haven't given them the necessary permission to do so until now. As soon as they manage to secure this definitive green light from the US administration, they will undoubtedly go ahead and do it. Frankly, if they had already obtained this high-level authorization, Israeli forces would have decisively hit all of these critical military facilities right from day one of the conflict, but they still haven't gotten that final clearance from the Americans. For Iran actually deliberately dragging this multifaceted war into other neighboring countries across the region might not even yield a substantial long-term benefit for them, meaning orchestrating such an external proxy spillover ultimately won't prevent the Islamic Republic regime from progressively weakening, losing domestic support, or even collapsing entirely from within its own borders. Their last hope is dragging other countries into this war, even though they probably know it doesn't guarantee they won't fall. It's the only way they see forward. That's why it's clear that if Iran's oil facilities suffer a full attack, Iran will most likely do the same. So, like today, Iran comes and attacks the oil facilities of countries in the region, and none of these have had serious results. Just as the Israelis warned Iran, Iran is also warning them. The Islamic Republic is doing the same thing too. If we want to hit these, we can hit them. Let's not forget that these oil facilities, not just Iran's, but all oil facilities, anywhere in the region, these are like soft targets. Meaning even a relatively small drone, if manages to slip past the advanced defense systems of these neighboring countries and strike these energy facilities, could easily cause massive damage. It is highly possible that each of these crucial installations could be entirely shut down for several months. Therefore, for Iran, even if such a drastic measure doesn't ultimately save them, targeting other innocent nations in the region during this war serves as their absolute last resort for defending themselves. This is why the Islamic Republic will most likely likely take this aggressive approach. Essentially, if Iran's own oil facilities are hit, they will inevitably retaliate by striking the critical facilities of other surrounding countries too.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you, Qasim Ashur, Middle East Affairs Analyst from Boston, and Atta Hosseinian, Economic Journalist in the energy sector from Berlin. But in line with the new phase of attacks on some energy facilities in southern Iran, in the capital, Masoud Pezeshkian also confirmed an hour ago the killing of Esmail Khatib, the Islamic Republic's intelligence minister, in last night's attacks. Earlier, Israel's defense minister had also said that Esmail Khatib was responsible for the Iranian government's internal system of murder and suppression and for promoting external threats. According to Israel Katz, none of the Islamic Republic officials in Iran have immunity, and Israel, according to him, continues to neutralize and hunt all of them. Mehdi Arabshahi, political analyst from Washington, joined us. Mr. Arabshahi, the Israelis are saying that there's no need at all to get permission from high-ranking officials anymore. Any of Iran's senior intelligence and security officials that their forces monitor on the ground, they can, according to them, neutralize them. What kind of picture does this give us of the approach the Israelis have regarding the continuation of this war?
Yes, greetings to you and all viewers. Well, anyway, after, on the first day, during Israel's attacks, the leader of the Islamic Republic and a few officials were killed. After that, actually, for a while, until yesterday and the day before yesterday, you could actually say that it was as if a security margin had been created for officials, meaning they felt very comfortable that they were being seriously targeted. But, well, its new wave, which started with hitting Ali Larijani, and then actually
Well, unfortunately, it seems that our connection with Mehdi Arabshahi, political analyst from Washington, has been cut off for now. If we can, we will return to him later in the program. I should also mention that in the past few minutes, Bahrain's Interior Ministry has also announced that air raid sirens have also sounded in this island nation. Naturally, our attention is also on Manama to see what the likely target was. The U.S. Director of National Intelligence said an hour ago in the Senate that if the Islamic Republic survives, this government will begin extensive efforts to rebuild its missile and drone capabilities and create new challenges for the security of the U.S. and its allies. According to Tulsi Gabbard, the Iranian government has been weakened since the war began on March 1st, but it appears to remain standing. Ms. Gabbard said Tehran and its proxies still have the ability to attack U.S. and allied interests in the Middle East.
Iran's strategic position has been severely weakened. The U.S.-led maximum pressure campaign and the automatic return of European sanctions put more pressure on Iran's already critical economy, a situation that led to widespread protests earlier this year, which Tehran suppressed by killing thousands of protesters. Even if the regime remains in place, the U.S. intelligence community's assessment is that internal tensions will likely increase because Iran's economic situation is getting worse. However, Iran and its proxies continue to attack U.S. interests and its allies in the Middle East. U.S. intelligence assesses that if the hostile regime survives, it will likely begin a multi-year effort to rebuild its missile and drone forces.
Marzi Hosseini is with us from the U.S. Congress. Marzi, Ms. Gabbard was testifying in the U.S. Congress, and as we know, she has been one of the biggest opponents of military intervention in Iran in the past.
That's right, although this session wasn't just Ms. Gabbard alone. Alongside Ms. Gabbard, Mr. Ratcliffe, the CIA director, and Mr. Wray, the FBI director, were also present. They weren't willing to set foot here in the U.S. Congress over the past few weeks, despite numerous requests. Forced to attend today's mandatory annual session, the three officials face the first unclassified hearing regarding the Iran issue. Democrats seized this opportunity and, as the American press noted, grilled them with repeated questions. However, most inquiries went unanswered, as the officials cleverly deferred important responses to the subsequent classified session following the public one. But the important points that were actively raised during the discussion, specifically the first major issue, were directly related to Ms. Gabbard. Ms. Gabbard explicitly said that based on our comprehensive intelligence assessments, the Islamic Republic has undeniably been weakened over time, but the overarching regime is still firmly in power today. It was a significantly important statement to make. Consequently, right after that admission, it led the panel to challenge her and ask, well, if the regime is still in power now, you had, Israel promised this outcome, you had originally entered into the Iran situation with one of your primary goals, seeing regime change. What's your plan? Do you want to change the regime with airstrikes? Do you want to send ground troops into Iran? Ms. G didn't answer. She said, I'll give you the answer to this question after this session, in the classified session. I can't say it now in front of the cameras and the public. But there was a very serious challenge. In the initial speech text sent to Congress yesterday, Ms. Gabbard included 3 important claims. First, last year's attacks destroyed the Islamic Republic's nuclear capabilities. Second, no decisions or actions for enrichment have occurred since. And third, images confirm all entrances to nuclear stockpiles are sealed with cement. These 3 sentences became a challenge for her because she refused to repeat them in the public session, and it led senators, specifically Senator Warner, to ask her very firmly, why didn't you say these things? If Iran's nuclear facilities were really destroyed last year, then why did you attack now, when you say there was no threat over the past year and after the previous attacks? Why is this specific development so important? Primarily because it directly coincided with the resignation of Mr. Joe Kent, who, as we know, served as the head of the counterterrorism department. This person ultimately resigned from his position precisely because he stated that there was no immediate or imminent threat justifying this preemptive attack. And now, the pointed questions that the Democrats asked during the hearing were strategically formulated with the primary aim of essentially questioning the legitimacy of the U.S. military operation in Iran. They are openly arguing that Mr. Trump is lying to the public about this threat being immediate. To better understand the dynamics at play, let's go see a part of this session, specifically the remarks made by Mr. Ratcliffe.
If Iran were permitted to successfully develop long-range ballistic missiles, specifically those with an operational range of 3,000 kilometers and above, the strategic implications would be severe. Such advanced weaponry could easily reach Europe itself, directly threatening our closest allies. Furthermore, we know Iran is actively gaining critical dual-use experience in these more powerful booster technologies through the guise of its so-called space launch program. If we allowed them to continue this unchecked work, yes, they could eventually achieve the intercontinental capability to launch destructive missiles at continental America. This escalating global threat is one of the primary reasons why the deliberate weakening of Iran's sophisticated missile production capabilities is happening right now. The targeted military actions executed during Operation Epic Rage are precisely why such proactive defense measures remain absolutely critical for protecting our national security.
After Mr. Ratcliffe made these remarks, one of the Democratic senators told him very sharply that his position was completely unclear, that he was changing his statements every day, and that he didn't even know why they attacked. And when he used this kind of language, a very severe argument broke out. Mr. Ratcliffe and this Democratic senator were intensely shouting at each other, and in the middle of it, they requested Mr. Tom Cotton, who was the chairman of this committee, saying, "Come intervene, there's a fight happening here." Mr. Tom Cotton didn't intervene either. In short, I'm telling you, the tension was this high and widespread, and all other aspects of this war, including oil prices, including the impact this war has had on America's rivals like China and Russia, all questions were asked about this, although clear answers were not received. This was part of the session. The next session is scheduled to be held tomorrow, this time in the U.S. House of Representatives, where it seems it will be considerably more difficult for these 3 to answer questions regarding the U.S. military operation in Iran.
Marzi Hosseini, my U.S. Congress colleague. We have breaking news. As you recall, I told you in the middle of the program that a fire has been reported in the industrial city of Ras Laffan in northeastern Qatar. Minutes ago, Qatar's foreign ministry issued a very strongly worded statement against the Islamic Republic. I'll read a part of this statement. The Qatari government has announced its strong condemnation and disgust at what they called Iran's barbaric attack, which targeted the industrial city of Ras Laffan and caused a fire and heavy damage to these facilities. It considers this action a dangerous escalation, a clear violation of the country's sovereignty, and a direct threat to national security and regional stability. The statement continues that Doha emphasized that, despite its neutrality in the war, it has still been targeted, and it called this Iranian behavior irresponsible and a threat to regional and international peace. Finally, it states that Qatar considers this action a violation of UN Security Council resolutions, has called on the Security Council to intervene, and declared that it reserves the right to respond and defend itself under international law. This is the Qatari government that also had very good relations with Tehran before the war. This might be the most strongly worded statement we've heard so far from this Persian Gulf country against the Islamic Republic. We've entered a new phase. At any moment, it's not impossible that the Persian Gulf countries too might join these war reactions to protect their own interests. In a video message, Prince Reza Pahlavi has asked the people of Iran to show their solidarity with the grieving families by visiting the graves of those who lost their lives in the protests. In this message, thanking those who stood against threats during the Chaharshanbe-Suri ceremony, he called their presence a sign of national will and the continued desire for freedom in Iran.
My brave compatriots, deepest greetings to you who stood resolutely, firm and united against intimidation and suppression on the night of Chaharshanbe-Suri. Despite the looming darkness, you proudly kept the ancient fire of Iran burning bright. Through your unwavering courage, you showed the entire world that our national will remains truly invincible. The eternal flame of freedom and boundless patriotism in our magnificent Ahoric land will never be extinguished by any oppressor. Now, on the last Thursday of the year, I respectfully ask each of you to be present at the graves of the immortal names of the Lion and Sun Revolution. Please take this solemn opportunity to honor all the courageous heroes who sacrificed everything on the path to Iran's freedom, and clearly show your unwavering solidarity with their grieving and resilient families. On the eve of the new year, we renew our covenant with the brave children of Iran. We forge an unwavering covenant to reclaim Iran. It is a solemn covenant dedicated to the homeland's enduring glory, and a powerful covenant to build a truly free, prosperous, and glorious future for generations to come. Long live Iran.
Naveed Mohebi, a political analyst from Washington, has joined us. Mr. Naveed, Mr. Mohebi. Initially, during the traditional Chaharshanbe-Suri festival, Prince Reza Pahlavi explicitly asked Iranians to celebrate the festivities, but strictly advised them not to engage with state security forces. Now, we are hearing a new message from him that citizens should go to the graves of those killed in the recent widespread protests, considering the brutal massacre that the Islamic Republic carried out, especially during those bloody 2 days of protests. How much do you think these actions are signs that Prince Reza Pahlavi is cautiously and slowly testing the waters on how protesters should appropriately react?
Hello to you and also to the dear compatriots who are currently watching this program. You see, we absolutely shouldn't forget that the brave people of Iran are no longer standing alone these days. Just last night, when the traditional Chaharshanbe-Suri fire festival ceremony was held across Iran, in many areas, several news agencies actually reported that Israeli forces were present in Iran's airspace. Remarkably, in some cases, they even prevented the regime's suppression forces from aggressively approaching the crowds, and the resilient people, despite all the severe threats and intimidation tactics made by government agents, including Police Chief Radan, still courageously came out to the streets and celebrated. And for tomorrow, anyway, visiting graves remains one of the deeply rooted Iranian traditions. Iranians thoughtfully visit cemeteries every year on the last Thursday of the year to pay respects, and as they say, visit the graves of loved ones. Yet a most important thing is that we, all of us Iranians, truly need to understand exactly what happened in our past that ultimately caused us to reach this current point. What happened that caused the Islamic Republic to be under severe blows from America and Israel today? That person who had said, "Come what may," or "I don't know," will even hit their feet. It wasn't just about the head or the beginning. What a disaster has befallen them. You see, all of this was because the heroes of Iran made sacrifices, went to the streets, and brought upon the Islamic Republic this disaster that has befallen it today, meaning it was all because of these families. That's why it's important to know why we are in this situation, and without these sacrifices, these blows that the Islamic Republic is receiving wouldn't have been possible. For this reason, it's important to be alongside these families. In the future of a free Iran, the people of Iran will also not forget these families. Prince Reza Pahlavi also has plans to help these families and those who lost their lives, and I just want to say, and also, back in January 2018, when people came out into the streets, Rouhani always referred to this as a bitter event. He would say that these protests caused America to withdraw from the JCPOA, and these protests by the people back in January also caused all these troubles to happen to the Islamic Republic, marking the beginning of the end for the Islamic Republic.
Thank you so much. Naveed Mohebi, a political analyst from Washington, is with us. And thank you for watching tonight's 24 program. You can rewatch this program later on Iran International's YouTube channel.